What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jag, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to all things Jacksonville Jaguars. And coming off the heels of the season opener, we are going to break down all of the action, talk about the good and the bad, and how the Jaguars can go from here. Coming off that 20-17 loss to the Miami Dolphins. Before we get into the pod, let's pay off the sponsor right away. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of the $200,000. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Guys, the game started Sunday down in Miami, sweltering in Hard Rock Stadium. I mean, it was hot. It was 100 degrees on field level. It was a blistering day. Jaguars came up short, 20-17, a game that, we may look back on later in the season and just kind of regret the way things ended up not going in the Jaguars' favor. Because when you really look at this game, it's kind of the tale of two halves, or I would say the tale of 2.5 quarters and another quarter and a half. Because the Jaguars dominated the game at the outset. They really had control of the game. It was a bit of a surprise in terms of how much they were able to control it, given the explosiveness and the speed that the Miami Dolphins have in place on offense, particularly on the perimeter. But the Jaguars were holding their own. It was a game in which, coming in, I wanted to see how are the Jaguars going to play? Were they going to stay true to form? Were they going to change or do anything differently than they had done in preseason and in training camp? And man, they came out and did what they did. Offensively, it was a game plan that was designed to spread the ball around, mix in a little bit of the run and the pass, but forced the Miami Dolphins to defend every blade of grass, horizontally, vertically, personnel-wise. They wanted to really test the Miami Dolphins by really just having an offense that operated by going to the open man. Everyone's going to touch it, a little balanced distribution, but it was going to be a game plan where the Miami Dolphins were going to have to figure out who had the hot hand and how to diffuse the hot hand when you have a team full of, I would say, solid weapons. And early in the game, man, it looked great. Trevor Lawrence and the offense was clicking. Trevor was dropping dimes to Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. The running game was really getting cranked up. Tank Bigsby was really physical and powerful, running in between the tackles. You had a smattering of Travis Etienne making some contributions, but really it was all of the newbies and the young players stepping up. And you really liked the way that the game planning started out from the offense. It was a mixture of crossing routes, play action, movement-based concepts, some quick rhythm throws. But Trevor Lawrence was he was in his bag early, and this offense was really efficient. I mean, they were kind of moving the ball up and down the field. They had control of the game because Bigsby gave them that physical punch, and so they were able to lean into the running game a little bit. And the Dolphins didn't appear to have an answer. And I thought it was very significant at the end of the half. They get that field goal to go up by 10. It's 17-7 at halftime. Going to the locker room, I'm listening to Doug talk to the team, and Doug basically said, hey, guys, we need to be smart, we need to be physical, and we just got to finish the game. He said this is going to be a game where the conditioning really stands out. Take them into the fourth quarter, and that is where we should separate from the pack. And you go out the third quarter, the Jags are doing their thing. They're moving the ball up and down the field. It looks like they're about to really make the Dolphins kind of go belly up. The ball is in the red zone. Nice little handoff to Travis Etienne. He's getting close to the goal line, and then boop, balls comes out, rolls onto the back of the end zone. The Dolphins recover, and what could have been, and probably should have been, a 24-7 lead that completely forces Miami to abandon the style that they were utilizing on offense. It now puts the ball at the 20 following the touchback. First play, big shot, Tyreek Hill, 80-yard bomb, and all of a sudden it is a party jumping in Hard Rock Casino. It's standing in Hard Rock Stadium, and it is not a party in favor of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And from that moment on, the offense sputtered, never could get their rhythm, never looked like the way the unit looked the first 2.5 quarters. And it was three and out, three and out. Just nothing. There was nothing that this unit could generate to sustain the offense or to flip the momentum back in their favor. Doug Peterson tried to jumpstart it, going for it on 4th and 1 from his own territory, like deep in his own territory, like around the 29, 30-yard line. Didn't get it, but the football guys were working with the Jags, and the field goal attempt was missed. Couldn't take advantage of the next drive. The Miami Dolphins eventually come back and kick a field goal to tie it. And then even with all of the bad things that had gone on, there's 4 minutes on the clock. The Jags have the ball, and they have an opportunity to go and, finish this thing off, drive the ball down the length of the field, eat up all the clock, and kick a game-winning field goal or score a touchdown to do it. Jaguars promptly go 3 and out with 2 of those downs ending in sacks. At that point, man, you just knew it wasn't good because the defense had been on the field most of the fourth quarter. Miami just kind of makes a couple plays to get themselves in range, and boop, they kick a game-winning walk-off field goal to really steal a game that was controlled by the Jaguars from the jump. And it's one where if you're not careful as a fan, as a player, as a coach, the first thing that you start thinking about is, here we go again. But you gotta fight against that mentality when you look at this team and look at this game. And so what I want to do is I really want to kind of talk about the positives of the game, how they can build upon those positives, and then some of the things that they're going to have to work on, not only before they face off with Cleveland next weekend, but if they want to be a good team down the stretch. So let's start with the positives. Let's start with the good stuff. So the good stuff to me is I just love the way this team was ready to play. The plan all week, Doug had communicated, hey, we're going to play all our guys. We're going to do what we do. We're not going to change. We can kind of attack them. We feel like we can control the game in a few different ways, offensively, defensively. Man, we're going to play our scheme. We can keep the ball in front. As Ryan Nelson says, nothing cheap, nothing deep. Make them drive the length of the field, but challenge them by making them get through sticky coverage. And the final part of the equation on both sides of the ball, well, we're going to play a bunch of our young players. It's hot. It's the first game. Guys haven't gone into the fourth quarter at any point in the preseason. So it's unrealistic to expect them to be able to play 4 quarters right away and play at a high level. So let's play the young players. Let's have a system for getting those young players in and out so they can not only play and get experience, but hold down expectations and the standards while, kind of raising the standards of performance for themselves. Man, the young guys came in and they did it, man. Like you could just see the eagerness and the readiness of the young guys. Tank Bigsby, one who found himself in the doghouse shortly after week 1 because he put the ball on the ground, turned it over, had some more turnover issues later, and didn't really play a lot as a rookie. This year, the conversation has been about Tank Bigsby being a player, getting opportunities, kind of sharing the load with Travis Etienne. And I'm going to tell you, man, by all accounts, they were committed to doing that. When you go back and you look at the numbers from the game, Tank Bigsby had 12 carries for 73 yards. Travis Etienne, 12 carries for 44 yards. 6.1 yard average for Tank Bigsby. And I can tell you this, when you're on field level and you're looking at it, man, he's a grown man when he got the ball in his hands. Physical, rugged, runs through contact, finishes with violence. He displayed all those things. And his ability to run through arm tackles at the point of attack, to finish in a violent fashion, kind of set the tone because the Jaguars wanted to be more physical than the Miami Dolphins. And the way the run game was going at one point, man, you felt like they were kind of turning the tide on that. In the passing game, love the way the new guys, Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr., showed up. These are guys that are known for delivering and producing explosive plays that flip the field, change the game, or whatever. And I'm going to tell you, they did exactly what they were expected to do. You just talk about Gabe Davis showing up, 3 catches, 62 yards, 2 big explosive plays, made him on dig routes coming over the middle of the field. You can just see where his size, his strength, and physicality is going to be problematic for defenders. BTJ finished with 4 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown. But I'm going to tell you, the 50-plus yard penalty he drew on Jalen Ramsey when he just blew by the all-pro defender, that was an eye opener, I think, for the Miami Dolphins. Forced them to back up, made them respect the running game, and it's one of the ways that they can contribute. So right off the gate, the newcomers are playing up to expectation, and they are creating opportunities which should go to the other guys. So when I look at the other guys didn't really fare well on the perimeter. And sometimes the ball just kind of happens to find its way to certain people. But Christian Kirk had one catch for 30 yards. Evan Ingram had one catch for 5 yards. Kirk had two drops, which is really uncharacteristic of a guy who's as dependable as they come as a pass catcher. But when you haven't played in a while and you kind of get used to being around bodies and all this other stuff, sometimes it can throw you off. And so I would say both of the catches to me are the type that he catch 99 out of 100 times. It just so happens that in this moment he had a couple of drops. So that was problematic. I would say that the offensive tackles, Cam Robinson and Anton Harrison, started out solid, but as the game went on, they faded, and some of their fatigue and some of the fading led to sloppy technique, penalties, and other stuff. The offensive line, for the most part, did a decent job at the point of attack, but it was still kind of leaky in terms of what you ideally want at the position. Didn't necessarily impact Trevor, but you saw that he was ready to let it go, and there were people all around him and stuff like that. So it's one thing to get comfortable in the pocket. It's another thing to try and do some of those things in practice. But the main thing is you want to make sure he knows what he's doing. He's comfortable. He's able to do it, and he does it at a high level. So I'll just say that with Trevor and the connection with the wide receivers, they still have to kind of get together and get on the same page. But Trevor was really good for most of the day. 12 of 21, 162. The numbers don't pop, but I'm going to tell you, all you needed to look at were two plays. The seam ball to Christian Kirk down the middle where he sees the defense, splits it, delivers a dart right down the middle. It ends up being a 30-yard game for Kirk. That's one. And then I'm going to say the touchdown to Brian Thomas Jr. When you look at the replay, if you catch it, he is not even really in range when Trevor lets this ball go and he drops a teardrop to the back of the end zone. In quarterback terms, they call it layering. He layered the ball up and over the top, dropped it right on the back end line, and Brian Thomas Jr. made a phenomenal catch to catch it and put both feet in. Just the timing and the chemistry between these two, love it. And Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr., they add different dimensions to this offense that we haven't seen. Still expected to be ball control, but man, it could be a little more explosive, a little more big play driven than we thought going into it. And more things about Trevor. And looking at him, I graded him for the first 3 quarters. I gave him an A. He was really good with his rhythm, his accuracy. Dropped it down to Christian Kirk, which we've talked about. The touch throw to BTJ in the end zone, great anticipation. I mean, he's not even in the screen, just throws it over there and lets him run up under it. I mean, just terrific anticipation and ball placement. All that is good. The bad, when I look at some of the individuals, one, Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk got to touch the ball more. Even though Christian Kirk had 2 drops, the ball has to kind of work inside out, operate off of those guys to create the perimeter. You can do it the other way, but it's a lot easier inside and being able to do some of that stuff. So they got to continue to work on the passing game and making sure that Kirk and Ingram have plenty of opportunities to kind of impact the game. The other part, the offensive line. The issues that plagued the offensive line a season ago, the third and short, the situations that are fourth and short, where you got to just, everyone in the building knows you're running, you got to convert. Still struggling in those areas. Talk about it. You can switch and do all kinds of other stuff, and whether you're crawling or whatever. But at some point, you got to be able to man up and be able to get a yard whenever you need a yard, and it doesn't matter if everyone knows what's coming. They haven't been able to do that. And to me, it creates this aura of a lack of physicality when you play this team, because they do fare so poorly on these third and fourth yard situations. They just aren't converting them. So the offensive line has to do better. I would expect them to spend a lot of time working on the short area stuff, because it's important. It's the drive standard. And, it's one of those things, if you're going to be great, I mean, to go from good to great, like, you got to be able to master the small things, and they have not mastered the small things that come along with being really good in a bunch of different areas, whether it's the passing game or the running game and that stuff. And a lot of that, to me, ends up being on the offensive line, just not connected, not on the same page. And when you're not on the same page, there are leaks, and that leak leakiness, that leakage is creating opportunities for guys to kind of blow up the running game on critical downs. And so to me, I think if we think about next week and some of the areas that you want to work on offense, finishing the game, 4 minutes offense, winning short yardage red zone situations where everyone in the stadium knows you're running, but you still run it and you have to get it. I would say just continuing to find ways to feature your star players, find ways to make sure that they are getting the ball, they're having it enough opportunities to tilt the field in your favor, and that takes sometimes the scheming, the creativity. That's when that comes in, when you have a great play and you're trying to unlock all of, I would say, the tools on the tool belt. That's on the coaching staff. Let's see how they continue to evolve with these young guys displaying skills that, to me, suggest they should be on the field more. Tank Bigsby, Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, they got to find a way to be on the field more, got to maximize what they can bring. Let's go to the defense side of the ball. Brian Nelson is a stud, man. And I'm going to say that because I stood beside him throughout the game. He's on the sideline because he prefers to call it from field level. I'm on the sideline handling Jaguar sideline radio duties, and just watching him, interacting with him, so positive. No matter what was going on, man, he's a hand clapper. He's one of those guys that's like, hey, man, it's okay. Let's line up. Let's play the next down. He has talked about it, creating this aura and mentality that, look, man, doesn't matter what goes on. They're going to keep playing. They're going to play right to the end. And those things resonate with the team because obviously I'm looking at the team and the team's playing hard, man. They're playing hard. They're running to the ball. Probably one of the better tackling efforts I've seen from this team. Didn't give up a lot of extra yardage on crossers and those things. Like, man, they just did a really good job of being in the hip pocket, making a play when the play was there to be made and doing it. The thing that stood out to me is, man, I worried about this team being able to play man-to-man against some of these fast wide receivers. But when you think about team defense and team pass defense, and what you're doing is you're trying to force the ball to go into certain areas. You're not trying to be a hero and do things outside of the box. You're trying to make it where, all right, man, I can set a trap. You can go get it. We're going to figure it out. The defense shows some of that promise with Andre Cisco in the back end. Him and Antonio Johnson, really good communicators. They're really, I mean, you can hear from the sideline how well they're communicating and what they anticipate and who's dropping down and who's covering whom and all those other things. Like, it was really like a joy to watch this creative offense doing what they do. But, man, the Jags matched up and didn't get flinched, didn't get overwhelmed by it. They did some things, some zone man concept stuff where they didn't run with the motion, but they're still in man-to-man based on who the final alignment was. Did a really good job of tackling in space. And this is a team that, man, if you don't tackle in space, they will eat you completely alive. Tackle well in space, did all that other stuff. You're worried about the rhythm of the passing game and could they get to it? Yes, they could. Trayvon Walker, 2 sacks. Eric Armstead, big boy, the interior, and got a sack. So 3 sacks. They were able to get that part done. All of it was trending positively because they were doing it while rotating a bunch of new players, a bunch of young players, a bunch of guys who never really played Plymouth Rose, but finally getting an opportunity to do it. And so we're like, hey, just let's drop them in there and see what Jerry Jones has. Let's see what we can do if we put Darnell Savage at nickel. What does it do? How does it change the rest of the lineup? All of those things were in play, and all of those things were working out well. Taking you back, Doug Peterson said, hey, man, the thing of the offseason is about change and develop. Change the way we do business around here. We want to develop the young guys, the professionals, the guys that take it seriously so they can maximize their talents. Brian Nelson was doing that. I mean, it was a great game plan. I've never been more of a believer. All that tricky stuff that Miami does, all the motions, shift, man, they can almost force you out of anything that you want to do. But he stubbornly stayed in it. They were able to kind of figure it out. They began to put the clamps on them on the outside, and lo and behold, they're up until they're not. And what I would say is things that Jags have to know immediately, the same thing that you tell high schools. First play after turnover, think deep shot. This is as old as the father time. Turnover, deep shot, they go hand in hand. The other thing you want to try and figure out, when are we going to switch and change from man to zone? Can we be a team that is varied? Can we play like a lot of zone in some games if we need to? Are we just a fastball hitter where we're just a man-to-man team and that's all we do? So are we going to change? Are we going to evolve? Or is the system the system? You're just going to keep playing to that and keep getting better and better at what they do. I will say this. I'm not advocating for making changes and adding stuff. Man, the defense was fast, physical, and they were flying around. And I think some of the aggressiveness stemmed from the fact that they knew exactly what they were doing because it was clearly explained, clearly demonstrated, clearly executed on the practice field. So they clearly did it in game action. Wasn't perfect because you had some miscommunication errors that may have led to some big plays. We talked about Waddle. We've talked about Tyreek Hill. So they can clean that up. But overall, the performance was really, really solid. I can't really take the defense to task for anything. You hold the Miami Dolphins to 20 points, on a game-winning field goal at the end. Tua has 300 plus yards, but look at how hard he had to work for those. Couple got out the chicken coop, but everything else was caught inside, funneled inside, and they did a really good job of owning that part of it. I would say that you want to continue to work with Monteric Brown because he may have to start in the event that Tyson Campbell is unable to play. But if he's not, if he plays, he plays. He's played a lot of snaps. He looks comfortable in the new scheme, came in and kind of held up and did his job. So why wouldn't he? I think the other part that you want to see is you just want to see this team eliminate the communication gaffes. Some of the errors that lead to blown assignments, and those blown assignments lead to big plays, explosive chunk plays, 60 yards down the field. You got to eliminate that part of it just by lining up, making sure you understand your assignment, and knowing what the potential adjustment could be if they begin to shift and move and those things. And so everyone has to be on the same page, but the mic has to be a great communicator so he can see on the other side and say, hey, here's what's about to happen. We're about to check to X, Y, and Z. And so it's one of the things that you want to continue to evolve to. Devin Lloyd is new to it, but Foye Oluokun is on the field with him at will. Let's just see how it continues to do it, even though Foye, I think, is the green dot guy, so he calls the plays in the huddle. We'll just see how they make strides with the communication to prevent some of those things from kind of derailing what was a really, really solid performance. Final thing that showed up in terms of working on, and one of the reasons why the team lost, we talk about the DBOs. And so DBOs, don't beat ourselves. They're the kind of traits that you exhibit if you are one of those guys that's the leader. You don't beat yourself. And part of that is related to turnovers, pre-snap and foolish penalties, big plays allowed, ball flying over the top of the head, and then having mistakes in the kicking game. When the thing that jumps out to me right away, man, 3 explosives in the passing game without even really tracking. 80, 63, 39, too many big plays. Keep everything in front or whatever. You've heard Ryan Ness talk about nothing cheap, no bubble screens, no layups, nothing deep, nothing over the top, and keep it all in front. We're rallying tackle. They just need to have some of that ready, to go in case it ever gets hairy again. They can kind of jump into it, settle everybody down, and kind of get them going. And when you get everybody going and get everyone on the same page, then you're more likely to eliminate the deep ball and the way the balls were flying over the top of the defense. Better communication, solid personnel. They should have an opportunity to kind of snuff that out and kind of get the game on their terms. So now let's talk about Doug Peterson and the thoughts, because everyone was up in arms that Doug Peterson elected to go for it on his own end, with the momentum clearly shifting towards the Miami Dolphins. Now, what I can't determine is if it was on, is it on Doug? Is it on press? Who is it on to say, hey, man, you need to make this thing happen right now? In the end, it was a long foul ball because it didn't impact the game at all because the points didn't go on the board. They were able to get off the field and those things. But it did create some questions in terms of hey, is coach going to go for it like this all the time, kind of willy-nilly? Or is this one that he's trying to actually give them some confidence by saying, hey, I believe in you guys to knock them off for a yard and those things? Ultimately, it didn't happen, didn't go well. They tossed out Travis Etienne, and he is absolutely ricocheted by multiple defenders meeting him at the point of attack. So it was a failed effort. And the Jaguars skirted disaster when the previous PAT was field goal attempt was missed. And so it ended up being a push. But what that fourth down gamble has done, it has created more questions about maybe the mentality of Peterson. Is he riverboat gambler? Does he go for it all the time? Is he cutting edge? And those things, I think some of it really is just by feel and flow. He felt that the team was reeling a little bit. And in my mind, he was trying to get them a little confidence where if they convert this, hey guys, see, we're back on track. We can do this. We can take this over. We eventually go score and bang. But by not doing it, kind of let everyone just kind of create this conversation that's unnecessary about just the risky ways that he has and whether he's the play caller or not and who called those plays and all this other stuff. So I'm ready to put that part to bed. But in the end, I think if everyone really looks at it and really honestly had this schedule out and they were marking W's and L's in pencil, I don't know how many people would say, oh, this was for sure to be a dub for the Jags. I think you like to come away with the win, but I think there are a lot of positives that they'll take from this that actually helped him. Coverage in the back end for the most part, did a really good job on 2 Pro Bowl caliber receivers. Good. Held their own, didn't get overwhelmed, didn't get knocked around, all that other stuff that you worry about when you play certain teams because they can expose you. So the speed factor didn't seem that it overwhelmed the Jags. They were just as fast on defense. Now, you're talking about 2 special ones in Waddle and Hill, but for the most part, they held their own. Yes, both had 100-yard days, but it was about stylistically how they kept him under wraps. I think you can build on that part of it. Offensively, I think Bigsby showing up and being the runner, a ground and pound guy, a physical guy. I can see them splitting the reps. They split the reps evenly a day ago, 12 and 12 in terms of rushing attempts per player. Maybe that continues. Maybe it becomes an even bigger issue. But I just know that this team has to continue to build on the positive habits that they've created throughout the training camp and off season and those things. They got to continue to stress on eliminating the DBOs, the don't beat ourselves things that turn games, turnovers, big plays allowed, pre-snap penalties or foolish penalties, and then kicking game errors. If they get those things lined up, this is going to be the team that we've talked about for a long time, being one of the best in the league. It's just a matter of the little things, the details. And so, in talking to the coaching staff and all that, I would expect next week they're going to harp on the fundamentals. They're going to get back right, and they're going to be ready to go when the Browns roll into town. So those are my initial thoughts on the game. I'm going to take a look at the tape a little later, and I may expand on that on Wednesday when we do the pod. But I appreciate you guys hanging in there, continue to be part of the growing group that we have. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Please make sure you check out all my colleagues on Bleav Network. We want to continue to support them and help them grow as they're trying to expand their fan bases. And sometimes we'll do some crossover things to have that difficult conversation, one team versus the other team, much like we did with Greg Camarillo and the Dolphins last week. But until next time on Wednesday, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Bleav in Jaguars, and I'm out.